It was a twisted, tawdry love triangle.
It was pretty nasty. I mean, it was a nasty situation.
Involving a beloved young coal miner, his much older wife, and the local exterminator.
He told Chris that he was the exterminator for a reason.
It was just juicy small-town gossip until one of the key players is exterminated.
I yelled across the yard at her and asked her, said, "Well, bitch, you finally got what you wanted."
They had a marriage made in the coal mining mountains of Beckley, West Virginia. Chris Ward, a strapping 6'2", 257-pound miner and loving father who worked long hours to provide for his family.
He's a big teddy bear.
Chris was a good guy. He was loved by everybody. I haven't found anybody that really didn't love him, except for maybe Sharon.
Sharon is Chris's wife, almost 10 years his senior, a stay-at-home mom to their 3 small children.
Chris was crazy about her.
She was just as nice as can be, sweet, but she had her side to her.
According to Chris's family, it's a very dark side.
She would manipulate Chris quite a bit.
She would talk down to him and just very disrespectful.
I was surprised that he just stood there and took it.
But Sharon claims it was Chris who was the abusive one, both verbally and physically.
Chris didn't have as bad of a temper as Sharon would say he did.
The endless bickering eventually took its toll, and Chris and Sharon separated. They even filed for divorce.
We wanted him to move on because we just did not feel like they were going to be able to make it.
Instead, it was the beginning of a swinging door relationship.
He'd always go back.
Chris had a love for her, and he loved his children, and he continued to go back to try to make it work.
And it did work until Chris became suspicious about this man, Michael Stines, the local exterminator.
As they say, the mountains have ears, and you get told a lot of things.
Chris found out Stines was making an unusual amount of house calls to Sharon.
He suspected that she was having an affair, but she really didn't confirm it. But he just knew and felt it.
It was the couple's next-door neighbor, Debbie Miles, who finally revealed Sharon's dirty little secret.
Chris would come to me and he'd say, "Debbie, I know that it's going on." I said, "Chris, I'm not going to lie to you. Yes, it's going on."
It was very hurtful to him to know that she was seeing someone else.
Sharon and the exterminator soon began to flaunt their relationship around town. Chris even has a tense run-in with the happy couple.
There were words exchanged, and he basically, at that point in time, he told Chris that he was the exterminator for a reason and he could come and see him anytime to find out.
Chris finally had enough. He moved in with his parents, telling friends it was the exterminator who killed his marriage.
He asked me if I would go with him to the house to get some of his personal belongings.
Chris's close friend, Bill Dunkley, says he got a bad feeling and made Chris promise not to go alone.
I said, under the circumstances, I said, just don't go by yourself. And he said he wouldn't.
Chris kept his promise, but Bill missed his call.
Well, I was in the middle of something and I didn't answer his call.
Chris decides to go anyway.
I wish I would have answered the phone. Maybe I could have kept him from going.
Sharon claims once inside the house, Chris becomes violent. But instead of dialing 911, she calls her new boyfriend, Michael.
I believe that Sharon worked up Michael Stines, telling him Chris did this, Chris did that.
Michael grabs his 9mm semi-automatic and drives toward the house, but he doesn't stop.
He went inside of the church.
Michael reportedly sits in front of this church right down the street and tries to call Sharon, but she hangs up. With that, he heads toward the house, unholsters his gun, and dashes toward the door. Seconds later,
And I believe when he come in that house, he knew what he was going to do.
up next, who shot who?
There's only 3 people that know the truth, and that's Michael Stines, my brother, and God.
And the XXX work order that exposes everything.